Our closing argument should be underway in a California courtroom in a case pitting the world's richest man against Twitter shareholders. Now, the AP is reporting a lawyer for the shareholders told the jury that Elon Musk, quote, knew what he was doing when he publicly posted what they say are false claims about the number of bots on Twitter. Remember that? Those posts came in the middle of a deal to buy Twitter back in 2022, which Musk, of course, later renamed X. Now, according to the lawsuit, Musk's goal was really to manipulate Twitter's stock. He took to social media to say that the number of bots on Twitter was a lot higher than what the company reported. And the deal could not move forward until Twitter's CEO at the time provided the correct numbers. Twitter sued Musk for trying to back out, and just before that case went to trial, Musk changed his mind again and went through with the original deal. Musk denies any wrongdoing. NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris is joining us now. Misty, Musk testified that when he made those posts, he was just kind of speaking his mind with no ulterior motive. But what do shareholders have to do to convince a jury? And I'm guessing they can bring up some past examples.
Well, yeah, Tom, what's funny is in Elon Musk's testimony, he said, what I think privately is no different than what I put out there publicly, which I think we can agree if you go back and look at his history on social media. But that being said, he has maintained from the defense side that the tweets about the number of bots at Twitter and his concern about what that meant for the purposes of going through with this transaction were accurate, that there was a genuine concern. And what he was saying was about the status of the ultimate deal in negotiation, that it was not fraudulent at all, even if the way that he said it might not be entirely accurate. It doesn't rise to that level. Now, in order for the plaintiffs to prevail, they have to show intent, that he acted either intentionally or recklessly for the purpose of moving the market, causing harm, which means that what he says has to be what's called material. That is a legal meaning, that it's the type of thing that investors would act upon if they were to see it. And then, of course, that other market factors didn't cause the change in the pricing of Tesla shares, that it was actually his tweets and what he put out there publicly. So that is all the jury has to grapple with. Those are the elements of what needs to be established. And what the shareholders are looking to is establishing that timeline that you're talking about, the tweets all the way up until that deal ultimately goes through in October, that it means something different when you're tweeting this stuff and you're in the midst of a transaction, that of course could have an impact on how the shareholders act. So those are the two competing narratives that are playing out in these closing arguments.
Okay, but this isn't the first time that Musk has been brought to court over allegations of duping investors with his social media posts, right? 3 years ago, a jury actually absolved him of wrongdoing in a case related to his plans to buy Tesla. So what is likely to be the case here?
Well, in that particular case, a lot of these shareholder derivative lawsuits, they settle because a lot of company documents become implicated, the way companies operate. So a lot of that, they don't really want it to go out there in the public sphere. But Musk has pushed them, and he's pushed them to trial. And he was successful in that Tesla case. And that was actually upheld on appeal, which may be the reason why you see this playing out in the courtroom. But it's all going to come down to that element. Are these just tweets that are sloppy? Maybe the information isn't quite accurate, or they really intended to move the market in a fraudulent way for his benefit and to the detriment of shareholders. And those are the legal questions the jury will be answering.
Misty Marris, thanks very much. Great analysis.